friends, welcome to my channel 5 Minutes History. Today I bring you the story of Mao Zedong, the Chinese politician, political theorist, and a communist revolutionary who is widely regarded as one of the most influential figures of the 20th century. Mao was the founder of the People's Republic of China, which he led as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from the establishment of the PRC in 1949 until his death in 1976. Ideologically a Marxist-Leninist, his political theories and military strategies are collectively known as Maoism. Mao was born on 26 December 1893 into a wealthy peasant family in Shaoshan in the Hunan province of central China. He was quite rebellious from a young age. He rejected the traditional value systems taught at school, refused to acknowledge the marriage arranged by his father, and even ran away from the home to the provincial capital of Changsha to continue his education. There he came in contact with the new ideas from the West, as well as the revolutionary ideas of Liang Qichao and Sun Yat-sen. In 1911, during the revolt against the Qing dynasty, he enlisted in a unit of the Revolutionary Army and spent 6 months as a soldier. While he probably had not yet grasped the idea that, as he later put it, the political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, his first military experience at least confirmed his childhood admiration of the military leaders and exploits. Mao later attended a teacher's training school where he began to embrace even more revolutionary ideas and was fascinated by the Russian Revolution of 1917. After graduation, Mao moved to Beijing and worked at a university library. It was during this time that he began to read the Marxist literature. In 1921, he became a founder member of the Chinese Communist Party and set up a branch in Hunan. In 1927, the Nationalist Party or Kuomintang under Chiang Kai-shek launched an anti-communist purge, massacring at least 5,000 communists in Shanghai, and led to the start of the Chinese Civil War. Mao led an uprising of the peasants against the KMT but was badly defeated. In June 1928, the KMT gained control over Beijing and was recognized as the official government of China by the foreign powers. Mao and the communists, however, continued to set up peasant soviets in the southern Hunan and the Jiangxi provinces. In 1931, Mao was elected the chairman of the Soviet Republic of China in the Jiangxi province. He then ordered his poorly equipped but fanatical peasant army, called the Red Army, to launch a reign of terror against the landlords, in which more than 2 lakh people were tortured and killed. But before Mao could increase his influence, KMT troops surrounded the Red Army in the mountains of Jiangxi, forcing them to make a desperate escape in 1934. About 85,000 Red Army troops and followers retreated from Jiangxi and started walking 6,000 km arc to the Shaanxi province in the northwest China. But due to freezing weather, dangerous mountain paths, unbridged rivers, and attacks by warlords and the KMT, only 7,000 of the communists made it to the Shaanxi in 1936. This long march cemented Mao Zedong's position as the leader of the Chinese Communists. In 1937, when Japan invaded China, both KMT and the Communists briefly allied against the foreign enemy. But shortly after Japan's surrender in the Second World War, another phase of the Civil War broke out between the two. In this war, the Communist guerrillas gained upper hand and inflicted series of defeats over KMT. Chiang Kai-shek and his followers finally fled the mainland for Taiwan, and Mao proclaimed the founding of the People's Republic of China or PRC on 1st October 1949. Mao then launched radical reforms in China. About 2 to 5 million landlords were executed across the country and their land was redistributed to the poor peasants. Mao's campaign to suppress the counter-revolutionaries claimed at least 800,000 additional lives, mostly former KMT members, intellectuals, businessmen and capitalists. Intending to make China an industrial power, Mao launched the Soviet model of 5-year plan in 1953. Industry came under the state ownership and the farmers began to be organized into collectives. Encouraged by the initial success, he launched the second five-year plan called the Great Leap Forward in 1958. This aimed at mass mobilization of the labor to improve industrial production. Farmers were urged to smelt iron in their yards rather than tending the crops. The result was a massive decline in the agricultural output, and an estimated 40 million Chinese starved in the Great Famine of 1958-60. The policy was abandoned and Mao's political position weakened. On the international level too, Mao's policies faced criticism. He meddled into the Korean War on the side of the North Koreans, invaded and illegally occupied Tibet, forced war onto India, and captured thousands of kilometers of Indian territory, and even broke friendly relations with the Soviet Union. Amid growing criticism, Mao was pushed aside within the internal power structure of the Chinese Communist Party. Moderate leaders like Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping freed the peasants from the communes and imported wheat from Australia and Canada to feed the famine survivors. In an attempt to regain his authority, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution in 1966, aiming to purge the country of the impure elements and revive the revolutionary spirit. He incited the youth of the country to destroy the four olds: old customs, old culture, old habits, and old ideas. While the country's students were destroying ancient artworks, texts, burning temples, and beating intellectuals to death, Mao managed to purge both Liu Shaoqi and Deng Xiaoping from the party's leadership. Liu died under the horrific circumstances in prison, while Deng was exiled to work in a rural factory, and his son was thrown from a fourth-story window by the Red Guards. During the Cultural Revolution, 1.5 million people died, and much of the country's cultural heritage was destroyed. Though Mao appeared victorious and regained prominence in the CCP, but his health was deteriorating. He died of heart attack on 9 September 1976. Mao's legacy today is a complicated one. He is known as the founding father of the modern China and inspires 21st century rebellions like the Nepali and the Indian Maoist movements. On the other hand, his leadership caused more deaths among his own people than that of Joseph Stalin or Adolf Hitler.